What's up, guys? Hazy's here. Got kind of a late review on Last Epoch. I finally decided to pick it up. It's going to be kind of my first impressions and my review. I might do a final verdict later on once I get some more time into it. But I really wanted to get this video out before Diablo 4 Season 4 starts because I will be jumping back into Diablo 4 and checking out Season 4 because I've done a lot of changes and I think and hope it will help the game and put it in the right direction it needs to be going. But this video is not about that. It is about Last Epoch. And just a little quick backstory here. I didn't do any early access for Last Epoch. I did not purchase the game until it was fully released, and I actually waited a few weeks even to purchase it once it was released to let them iron out the servers and things like that. But I have been loving the game. I have about 80 hours in. As you can see, I have some different characters here. I started out playing all of these characters on hardcore, and unfortunately most of them perished. I have a level 70 here. I don't know that I personally am a fan of hardcore playstyle, but it was fun for the time being. So I got a 66 Swords, 66 Paladin, 42 Warlock, and a 71 Beastmaster, and a couple low characters down here. So I have quite a bit of time into the game, but not near the amount of time that I need to fully get into like some of the in-game stuff as far as like the crafting and arenas and things like that. But we're going to be jumping kind of just right into it here. Without further ado, the graphics, guys, I think are top notch. I think that they really did a good job at the graphics. I don't have any complaints. I think it's up there on par with AAA studios. I talk about this a little later in my review, but I think the armor looks great. As far as the fantasy of like the characters, like Druid armor looks like it should be on a Druid, a Warlock, Paladin, Knight, Knight and Shining Armor, and Source. I think all the armors fit the style of fantasy characters that they are. And the graphics, I think, are great. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and just exit game real quick. Graphics, I give 8 out of 10. I thought he did a very well job. Graphics at times were just phenomenal. I mean, the areas that you were in, the zones you were in, I think they did a good job with the immersion, making you feel like you're in like a fiery environment. Fine graphics are good. I did see one guy complaining about a few like glitches here and there with the graphics, which I mean, I did encounter a few, but it's not a big deal to me. I didn't notice them very often visually. And like right there, you don't see the lava like pooling up anywhere. Like that doesn't really bother me. But to each his own, right? Some people care about more things than others, and that's fine. Gameplay, I give a 7 out of 10. I think this game is very good. It's kind of a cross between Path of Exile, Diablo, and the skill trees honestly remind me of Titan Quest just because they're running horizontally opposed to vertically. Like when I first saw those skill trees, I was like, oh, this reminds me of Titan Quest. I think Grim Dawn also does the horizontal skill trees. And depending on what Diablo you play, they do all sorts of different types of skill trees. And then, what was the other game? Path of Exile skill tree is huge, obviously, if you play that. But I think that it's a good blend between all three of those games. I think casual players will have fun playing this game. I think hardcore players will have fun playing this game. It's not as complex as Path of Exile, and I'm glad for that because I don't want to get that crazy as far as diving into like spreadsheets and really min-maxing to the max or anything like that. There were times where this game really made me think about how I was going to survive different situations, and they really do put an emphasis on like, hey, you are going to need to focus a little bit on survivability, otherwise you're going to be getting one shot at times depending on what enemy you're fighting. I also love that you can really get through the campaign on a home brewed build. You know, you pick your class and then you have your masteries. And I think the system there, with the skills and the way they did it with the mastery, was very, very well done. It just gives you so many options and different options to play the character or the class, and really gives you free range to make a build of your own. And your build might work, and you know, it might not work. All kind of depends. But I made it through with a homebrewed build, and I also made it through with a build I got off Maxroll. So I think they did a good job of kind of trying to find that balance between casual and hardcore. Like, yes, it's could be difficult and frustrating at times if you don't have enough survivability or enough damage. But then once you kind of figure out that balance, you know, there's times where you're blowing through enemies as well. But I feel like they did a very good job of keeping the power creep good, as far as you feeling stronger and stronger as you level up and find better items, but also keeping you in check. Like, okay, yeah, you're this powerful, but now you're running into these guys who are going to hit you a lot harder and not take as much damage. So now you need to really kind of go back, look at the items you have, maybe refine your build and things like that to progress even further. Like I said, the power creep felt good with the characters I played. I still think, and I'm always going to compare everything to Diablo 2 because that's kind of just my standard for ARPGs. I might be a little biased because that's what I played when I was growing up. But the power creep did feel good, but I still think Diablo 2's power creep really still has it just nailed down. I still thought there was just way too many items that would drop at times, especially when you open some of the chests and the monoliths. And I know you can get loot filters and things like that. And, you know, I'm sure once I dive into loot filters, it will help me as far as like taking out some of the junk I don't even care about. But at the same time, I don't want a loot filter that's going to remove everything because I have multiple characters. So I also want to be able to see those items that might be used for a different character or what have you. You know, I think that's just a problem action RPGs have in general across the board, is the clutter of loot. I think, again, I think Diablo 2 does a pretty good job of not cluttering your inventory with a bunch of things to search through. But yeah, I also have to remember that Diablo 2, your inventory was filled with charms and things like that. I love how in Last Epoch, I give them a huge amount of credit for this. Instead of charms, they have idols. Idols serve kind of like charms. They give you buffs when they're in your inventory. But specifically in your inventory, you have a spot in your inventory that's specifically for idols. I really wish, Diablo 2 had that set up where there was a specific spot for your charms. But then it wouldn't be Diablo 2, right? But Last Epoch did a very good job with that. I loved how the inventory was still free to hold items. And then you had your idle spot. One thing that I wish Last Epoch would do, and maybe they don't for a reason, is to be able to have a secondary weapon where I can swap from, like, say, a shield one-hander combo to a two-hander combo, and maybe they don't do that for a specific reason. I'm not sure. If you know why they decided on that design aspect of not allowing weapon swap, please let me know down in the comments, because I really was kind of racking my brain on why they wouldn't allow players to do that. Let's see here. The crafting system that Last Epoch has, I really enjoyed. I didn't think it was super over complex. Yes, at the very beginning, everything is fresh and new to you, right? So the crafting, in certain areas, the very first times I crafted, I had problems figuring out a little bit here and there, like, you know, what does this really mean or do if I press this button and place this here and this item here to give me a boost or bonus. But the crafting's good. I like how they have, it's a certain like limit that you can upgrade like your items and things like that. I think it's cool where they give you like legendary potentials on legendaries, where you can go and use an exalted item for a chance to buff that item. I haven't gotten a whole lot into that end game crafting yet, because obviously I don't have any characters that are super super high level. I think a 71 is the highest, and I honestly don't care too much for the Beastmaster and his minions. It just wasn't really my play style. But overall, Last Epoch is a great action RPG. Obviously it has its flaws. Every action RPG is going to have its flaws. Action RPGs, in my mind, are kind of really hard to nail down for a large to action RPGs are really hard to nail down to retain a large player base. Path of Exile has its player base for the hardcore crowd, and Diablo 4 kind of has the player base for casuals and also hardcore players. But I do think that Diablo 4 probably does miss, players here and there, just because of the things and the systems that Diablo 4 does and uses. So Last Epoch definitely shines in areas that Diablo 4 doesn't, and Diablo 4 shines in areas that Last Epoch doesn't. The graphics are obviously better in Diablo 4. I would say Last Epoch's graphics are probably better than Path of Exile's. And that's all kind of subjective and personal opinion as well, because I also heard somebody say that they thought Last Epoch's graphics were better than D4's. And I also heard somebody say that they liked Path of Exile's graphics over Last Epoch. So it's kind of subjective when you think about those kind of things. But in Last Epoch and in general, just looking at Last Epoch itself, like the game and the graphics look good and the gameplay looks good. It's a very well put together game. I kind of went off on a tangent there, but as I always do, right? So gameplay very well done. I'm trying to think if there's anything. Let's talk about a little bit about the monolith system. Monolith system, I think they did a very good job on. It's essentially doing very short dungeons and accomplishing an objective very quickly. I think the pacing is good. It does get very repetitive, but so does doing dungeons and any other action RPG. I do like how they have different objectives as far as like fighting off waves in a dungeon to complete it, or going to do a certain objective to complete it. I like how if you pick the, I can't remember the faction name, but you can increase your odds of finding certain items. I like how in the monolith you can find these little crystal nodes and complete that objective, and it will show you a wide area of what you could possibly find. In other, we'll just call them dungeons, and other dungeons. If you're trying to look for a specific item type, that really helps. I think the in-game content is good. I haven't gotten into it a ton. I've fought a few bosses in the monolith, and they've been fun. They've been cool. I haven't gotten to like any of the corruption things or anything like that. And I think it's honestly because I love building characters, and there's 3 masteries per each class. So that's a lot of variety, man. That's a lot of replayability. So yeah, gameplay, I give 7 out of 10. I don't know why and it might just be the action RPG genre in general. I always kind of burn myself out on. Even after 80 hours, I'm kind of looking forward to playing a different ARPG in Diablo 4, but I'm also a Diablo. I'm a huge Diablo fan. Like, that's the world that I like. I just really like that world. But let's move on to sound and voice. I thought the voice acting that was in this game was very good. Very well done. I had no issues with the voice acting. On par with AAA studios, maybe even better than some AAA studios with the voice acting. They did very well in that department. Anyone who says the voice acting in this game is low quality. I don't know what you're thinking, what you're saying. The voice acting was very good. The characters and the story, the characters were good. Like the heroes and the villains were very well done. The story, honestly, guys, even after 80 hours and playing the story a few times, some of it's still a little hazy and confusing. And I don't really care for the different time period things in the story. And I didn't really care for that in Chrono Trigger. And I loved Chrono Trigger as a game, but I didn't like how they did all the different time periods and things like that. I think it fits, obviously, in Last Epoch. And I think it works with the way they set up the map. It's after you work with the map a few different times, you really figure it out, and you're like, okay, well, these are kind of like different. I don't really want to say different acts, but we'll just call them zones. These are different zones that I can go to complete things. So yeah, sound good, voice acting good. Music was okay. Honestly, didn't pay a whole lot of attention to music. Spells and abilities sounded very good. I thought they did a very well. They did a very good job with the sound and the way spells felt. I thought melee abilities felt nice and chunky. Yeah. So sound I give 7 out of 10. I already kind of talked about the characters a little bit in the story. I give the characters in the story 7 out of 10 as well. Replayability, I kind of touched on this a little bit. There's 3 master classes to each class, so replayability is huge if you're into home brewing and crafting different characters. Tons of things that get done on the monolith. I didn't even touch on the arena. There's arena keys you can get. It's like I don't know, best way to describe it, like a super long dungeon, and then at the end of it you fight a boss that is, I've only fought him twice, but the bosses that I fought were very challenging, and I did not kill them. So yeah, arena I think is gonna be a little challenging once I put some more time in this game and get there. Bugs, I didn't really run into any bugs. I didn't crash at all ever. Cons are just really just me. I always struggle with action RPGs with burnout, and I'm sure a lot of other people do as well. That's just the grind at ARPGs, man. Grinding for items, grinding to get max level, grinding to see how high you can go on, what bosses you can kill, what in-game bosses you can kill, things like that. But yeah, that is it, guys. I had a great time playing Last Epoch. Like I said, I might do a final verdict at some point once I get a few characters up to max level and do some in-game stuff. And I will be playing Diablo 4 Season 4, so I'll definitely put out a first impressions video on that. I'm hoping for the best. I'm crossing my fingers. I have high hopes, but we'll kind of see what happens, right? Let me know down in the comments what you think of Last Epoch. Are you still playing Last Epoch? What's your favorite class build for Last Epoch? I mean, anything and everything, guys. Are you going to play Diablo 4 Season 4 and give it a shot? Or what is your favorite ARPG? What ARPG did you grow up on? I grew up on Diablo and Diablo 2. But thank you guys for stopping by. Please like and subscribe. Have a good day or night wherever you're at in the world. Much love, and we will see you on the next one.